All right. So, all right, this is my first PowerPoint presentation that I ever put together. So if you're PowerPoint aesthete, you have to curb my grades a little bit. The Ellipsis Manual, who here has read the Ellipsis Manual? You have? Okay, you have?
Yes.
Okay. So what is the Ellipsis Manual?
Comprehensive. It's a comprehensive guide on both information gathering, body language techniques, and I forget. There's another one, but I forget.
Yeah. Well, the next slide is going to clarify. So the Ellipsis Manual, it's a guide for this slide, profiling report and elicitation by Chase Hughes. We have a copy of the Ellipsis Manual, right? Do we have?
It's just next door.
Okay. So, yeah, maybe we'll get more copies. Anyway, so it's basically goes over a lot of the elicitation stuff that we went over in the last couple hours, but on a more scientific, zoomed in scale. So, lie detect, profile subjects, build rapport, and elicit information. By the way, this is a conversation, so if anyone has any questions or wants clarity, or even has a thought they want to share, raise your hand, and we'll go. And because there's a lot of stuff here, and I want to make sure you guys all get it. So, for instance, this. I'll give you guys a second to memorize this. You all good? Okay. I'm going to quiz you on it. So this is the behavioral table of elements. Okay? So you have A through G, you have 1 through 18. Now these are all gestures. This is basically the alphabet of gestures. They go from like the upper area from head down to below the waist. And then you have here object interactions and direct verbal. So for instance, object interact. Someone takes off their shoe, SR, shoe removal. That's obviously a very open gesture. You have, head tilt up here, HT. And from left to right, these are open gestures to closed gestures. So the further you get to the right here, like FNS, finger to nose, that's a closed gesture. And also, the further you get to the right, these gray ones mean either high stress or deception is likely. Okay? Now, I'll give you an example of the anatomy of a cell. Now, you have here reference number 1, symbol ACC. That means arm, and that's ACC is the code. Arm cross. Now, a gesture. Think of a gesture as like a word. Okay, it doesn't necessarily mean anything unless it's in a cluster. A cluster is basically a sentence. They're words in a sentence. So if this is and there's a separate dictionary that explains what the general translation of every gesture is. So arm cross, well, there are 4 variations of it, but one, it's a closed gesture generally, and it could mean they're being deceptive if it's clustered with DF, which is digital flexion. Okay, amplifying gestures means you can take the translation and and if it's clustered with CT, chin thrust, well, then it's a very hostile gesture, and they're being very hostile. Does that make sense? Confirming, if there's a confirming gesture here, then you can certify it as that's what this means. That's a cluster. If has an amplifying gesture, that means whatever the definition is, it's turned up the volume, up to 11 maybe. Microphysiologic capillary. Cultural prevalence is U. which means it means the same thing in Japan that it does in Glendale, California. Sexual propensity, if it says F, it's more females, M, males, P, that means, okay, I forgot what the P means, but I'm still memorizing this. Closed gesture type, conflicting behavior. If there's an H, if there's a conflicting behavior, that means don't assume that if someone's exhibiting this gesture, that it automatically means that they're lying, or if there's a conflicting gesture is HT, which is very open gesture. So if someone's like this, okay, they have an arm cross, but they're also tilting their head. Well, they're not being necessarily closed. Deception time frame. Down here you have, well, this is a deception scale. It's 1 through 4. So it's a 2, which means this person might be a little, might not be able to trust this person, especially if they're exhibiting it A after you ask the question, if it's an interrogation. If it's an interrogation and they exhibit this after they've answered, then consider the 2.0. All right, now cluster, here's an example of a cluster. So, does anyone have any questions so far? You don't need to, here's the thing, I know it's very intimidating, see? But recently what I did was I did a blow up of the behavioral table, and I framed it. So, and I put it in my room. So I'm always, the more just regular exposure you have to it, the more it's going to become intuitive. Yes.
Question.
Yeah.
Who wrote that? Who came up with this?
Chase Hughes.
Chase Hughes.
Yeah, and he appropriated it from years and years from other, from many other methods and conclusions, academic conclusions, and military and intelligence and police and law enforcement accumulated knowledge and basically centralized it all into this one thing. So this is a cluster. If someone is exhibiting digital flexion, KC knee clasp, resume. Now this is a direct verbal resume statements. Oh, of course I didn't commit voter fraud. Or of course I didn't kill my wife. I'm respected in my community. I have I'm a rabbi. That's a resume statement. That's a deceptor. Resume statement is 4.0 on the deception scale. Non-contracting statements. People seem to think that if they say I did not, that they're more believable than if they said I didn't. So if someone is not contracting their words, that's a high deceptive score. Single shrug SS, no, which is shaking the head. People give away often. They're telling you something. If they're shaking their head while they're telling you it, they're basically hinting to you that they're lying. Palm exposure. Now that is on the paperwork you saw as an open gesture, and people certainly display their palms when they're innocent, but people also, when they're lying, do it as a deliberate manipulator. So this is a sentence. These are the words in a sentence that tells you deception score 17.5. You add these up, add up the points. Anything above 12, you can't really trust this person. But it could also mean that they're just high stress. And it depends upon the context. If it's an interrogation, then yeah, they're probably lying. But if it's more just, a getting to know you conversation, you're stressing them out somehow. Now, that means you need to be cool. You need to be like Fonzie. You've got to open up your subject by employing the ellipsis progression. Now, I know this is overwhelming. You guys don't have to have all of this memorized by the end of this presentation. But just to know it's available to you, that's why I'm walking you through it. So You can assume when you first approach a subject that they are dubious. Where's this guy coming from? Notice everyone, you notice all the Acorn videotapes? You know, everyone's like, who are these people? But that phase is that you have to know where you are on the itinerary. That's the approach phase, okay? And later on, or in a minute, we're going to go over some techniques. So you have this guide for what techniques you probably, well, some of these are actually repeat to some of those. So you might know what some of these are, but this is a guide. Okay, well, if they're in the doubt phase, use the autopilot disengage technique. That's one of the techniques in the manual. Once you've gotten them to interest, still in the approach phase, profile development. That's a technique you want to use. So it goes all the way down to this is where you want them. This is where you want them. Eagerness of action, esteem reliance on obedience. Okay? And you use these techniques and you have to know where you are in the phase. Okay? Which phase you're on in the interaction. Okay. When you baseline your subject, you want to know what their rosebud is. Well, I call it their rosebud. But this is the human needs map. Well, this is part of the human needs map. So there are 17 basic human needs. Everyone, theoretically, has a primary need. I mean, they're universal. We all have these needs to some degree, but each one of us has a primary need and a secondary need. And the human needs map tells you, well, if the person's primary need is appreciation, they'll exhibit behaviors that tend to benefit others, improve others' environments, da-da-da-da. If their thing is approval, they'll perform several acts in order to seek approval from others. Now, I personally think that a lot of the people, the subjects you're going to meet in the field, especially infiltrating Democrat campaigns, acceptance and approval are big ones, I believe. They're group thinkers. They virtue signal on social media because they want the approval. I hate Trump. It's a national hate Trump contest. Whoever hates Trump the most is the most virtuous. So they can be approved. They can, get likes on their Facebook posts. Secondary need, it might be intelligence. They want, now these aren't necessarily the needs, they're how they want to be seen. Okay? Now if you know the needs and you know their needs, their fears, each need is correlated with a human fear. So if your subject's need is to be seen as strength, then social weakness is their biggest fear. Okay? Pity, if their need is pity, that's more of a secondary need, then their fear is social ridicule. Some people, their need is privacy, that means loss of privacy. For each one of these, they have a weakness that can be exploited. So if they if their human need is pity and their greatest fear correlatively is social ridicule, then you can know their weakness is that they will completely allow control once pity is confirmed and nurtured. So you want to placate their human need in order to open them up. Okay? A lot of these people, admiration. Is what they're looking for. Okay? And what their greatest fear is contempt. So if you act contemptuously, if you exhibit any gestures that could be subconsciously read as contempt, that's going to push them away. Okay? Any questions so far?
This could be for anybody, but are we able to get like a larger, more blown up version of this? Because I find this really interesting.
Yeah?
And helpful.
What I can do is I can make sure that you get the book and additional reference items after.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
Also, you guys all have my number on Telegram. You can call me anytime that you want, one-on-one training or advice or pointers or whatever. I've gotten to know this book very well. And the more I can teach it, the more I can learn. So these are X-ray questions. Because you want to identify their rosebud. You want to identify their needs, their weaknesses, and thenceforth how you can exploit them to get them to open up and elicit information, how to play to their weaknesses. 6 X-ray questions. You don't actually ask these, okay? But these are the questions behind the questions that you ask. What need is the subject showing me right now? So what is this if the person is bragging about how much they know, okay, then their need might be intelligence. Not actual intelligence, but to be seen as intelligent. So you want to placate that. What do they like to be complimented on? Ooh, if admiration is their human need, okay, contempt is their fear. Oh, that's wonderful that you're volunteering for the Greenpeace. All right, and be like, oh yes, ask me more about it. Okay, what makes them feel strong? How do you empower them? You want to empower them. What do they avoid in order to be happy or feel happy? And that pretty much is their fear. What does happiness sound like in their words and tone? And that takes us to the next slide in a second. What is at the end? Where do they want to end up? All right, what's the, in screenwriting terms, what is their arc? What is their story? How do they see their, final frame and fade out? So you find this out through linguistic harvesting, okay? Now again, this could be very intimidating, all this information, I know, okay? But so is driving a car. Who here, took the driver's test? Yeah, okay. So when you did, weren't you overwhelmed? Weren't you intimidated?
I was freaking about parallel parking.
Yeah, it's like, how the hell do you do that? It's so unintuitive. Okay, but now you don't even think about it, right? The reason I ask is, there might be New Yorkers here, and there's not a lot of driving, I understand. Yeah. Can you drive to Long Island?
Yes.
You can? What's the Staten Island you can't drive to, right? So everyone's going to use adjectives, especially now. Turn on the impeachment, all right? It's all adjectives. It's all, oh, this is egregious. It's mostly adjectives that you hear, okay? So when you mine for that, you learn a lot about them. How they describe appearances, colors, quantities, conditions, feelings, good, bad. No, those are very important. Ooh, I felt that guy is so obnoxious. Okay, well, that's a word you want to remember. If you hear them gossiping about someone as obnoxious, make sure you note that, because you are going to want to anchor another reference to using that term. Okay, touch, shape, size. Adjectives tell us how our subjects color their worlds. All right? Those are the musical notes for Color My World by Chicago. Yes?
So quick question. I never understood this. Does it work horizontally?
Oh,
do they
no,
relate
this
at
is
all?
nothing. This is just look for these words. Look for, like, when you listen to your subject,
Repeat.
yeah, make notes of the words. Is everyone clear on that? Okay. These are very important keywords. You learn, and I imagine some of you might already know this. Are they a visual person? Okay. Why might someone be how can you tell if someone's a visual person? Just by talking to them about anything unrelated to what kind of person they are.
Visual, they'll talk about arts or maybe their wardrobe, something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yes. Yes. But even in more, even more out of context.
I like to elaborate a lot on different things.
Yes, and how? Say they're describing a vacation they took. Yeah.
Use descriptive adjectives, like they wouldn't just say this. I look up at the sky. They would say like.
So blue.
Yeah. If they ask them about a vacation they took, that's what the Jen Janai interview at the very beginning, we happen to know that she had just gotten back from a vacation, okay? So we wanted to take her back there, okay, and associate being back there with us. And listen to the words that she used. Oh, it was beautiful. It was, you could see the horizon, or it felt, yeah, it felt very, the weather was da-da-da-da. Then they're probably kinesthetic, you know? So if they say, ooh, visual, you know, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, audio, digital, logic, and now that means logic and thought, okay? I think I know what you mean. I feel you. I hear you. I see what you mean. Yes.
Do you mind, because I can't see the back here, reading just quickly what it says under visual authority?
Yes.
Quick little description there.
So see, look.
Oh, I mean, visual subjects.
Oh yeah, visual subjects tend to. Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I can't see.
Yeah. Actually, I missed something important. Thank you for reminding me. So you want to listen to these things. It's not that big of a deal, but if you want to get to know who, like, what sensory channels they use, you listen to these, and the reason why you want to listen to their sensory channels is because these are the descriptions of the kind of person they are. The kinesthetically oriented subjects breathe more slowly into their lower lungs. You will be able to see their bellies moving while they breathe. So what does that tell you? That tells you that you're going to want to match their breathing. If you hear them say, "Oh, I feel you," or "It felt wonderful when I took this vacation," well, then that gives you a reference for the kind of techniques you want to employ. Watch their breathing. If they're kinesthetic, watch their breathing, and you want to mirror their breathing. You want to get in sync with their rate of breathing. See, if they're auditory subjects, are good listeners and are swayed dramatically by the tones of operators' voices. Okay, so if they say, "Oh, I hear you," "Oh, it was wonderful this trip we took. The birds chirping were wonderful, birds chirping," and if they say that, then you're going to want to put a big premium on your tonal interactions, the tone of your interactions. Any questions on that? Okay. So now it's not as big of a deal as this. This is a big deal. Remember I said earlier that someone uses a negative term to describe someone they're gossiping about. You're going to want to reappropriate that term into your vocabulary when you're talking about, oh, those Republican. Say you want to get them on tape talking about, okay, what's an example of content you might be looking for this year?
Voter fraud.
Voter fraud.
Or ballot
Okay.
harvesting, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
Whatever aspect for that, yeah.
So, who is the boogeyman? So in your elicitation, to get them to talk openly, you're going to want to get them to, you're going to want to get them to feel hyphy. You're going to want to work them up about, what is the reason they support voter fraud? Well, it's because the Republicans, all right, are changing. What I told Scott Fovel, when I told him about, how I have this client who hates voter fraud because it's racist, and he's come up with a great idea to circumvent it by enfranchising undocumented people and busing them from poll to poll, because the idea is to offset the voter turnout loss on account of voter ID. Because the Republicans see, the more we play by the Republicans' rules, the more we're going to lose, because they put those rules in place. They rig the game, okay? So it's not unethical to break the rules. It's not unethical to break the laws. If we don't, we're going to lose. They made those laws, okay? So in doing that, who's the boogeyman? Okay. What aspect of Republicans? Scott Fogle told me that people in Iowa are racist. Okay? So that's obviously a term you're going to want to use. You already do that. You guys already do that. See, part of this process is not just learning new techniques, but also being able to become aware of techniques you might have used in the field without even knowing that that was a defined technique. And the more you're aware of the skills that you're already utilizing that get results, and you can identify why you got content that one day. It's because I used that technique and I didn't realize. You're going to want to go back to your videotapes after you know this stuff and evaluate yourself and say, what did I do right? Oh, I was using this, it might have been just intuition, instinct that you used that technique. But little did you know that it's an actual technique. Okay, now anchoring. Who could tell me about anchoring? What they think, take a guess what it means. Don't cheat.
No, I think it has to do with what you said earlier, because when you mentioned it, I thought about how you essentially take a word that somebody used negatively against the boogeyman, you had said, and you associate that with what you're trying to portray. So
Yes.
Say voter fraud. Well, the boogeyman uses voter fraud, and then you associate the same adjective that they use.
Because they're racist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The racist boogeyman uses
Yeah.
voter fraud.
So you use you appropriate their vocabulary. Okay.
Is it a form of mirroring? I mean, that's the term that I've always kind of used.
Yes, it
Kind of
certainly is.
mirroring your subject,
Yeah,
right?
yes. Yeah, it certainly is. But it's not just that. I mean, mirroring is a great way to make your subject feel more comfortable, because the more like them they think you are, the more comfortable they're going to feel. They're going to feel like they feel when they're just by themselves. All right? So, yes, but it's also a more focused type of mirroring. So, for instance, when you're in the field, you also want to plant associations. You want to anchor certain behaviors that you're training your subject. You're welcoming your subject to open up to you, okay? And the only way that you can do that is to sell them subconsciously on the idea of opening up, the idea of transparency. You know, the thing about those Republicans is how, and the Trump administration, is it's so secretive. Imagine living your life not being able to trust anyone. Okay, what do you do? It's so okay. Give me a negative adjective besides racist. Someone.
Sexist.
No. I mean, that's good. Those are good. Sorry, guys, but I meant like sleazy. Very good. Yeah, I did not clarify non-political terms, so that was my fault. Sleazy. Yeah, it's so sleazy. They can't. These sleazy people, they can't trust anyone because they know how sleazy they are. So what are you doing? You're using one of their favorite terms, negative terms, and you're associating it with secrecy. You're thereby training them to associate secrecy with sleazy, okay? And what is the opposite? What is the opposite of it? Openness, transparency. So you're training them to think, oh, I should demonstrate. I should virtue signal how transparent I am. Look, here's my rap sheet. See how transparent I am? So, so now you know your subject's linguistic and gestural microexpressional glossary. You know, their vocabulary, what they use, what adjectives they use, what, what gestures they use to associate. Maybe they gestured to the right when they're talking about a bad vacation where it was raining and they were stuck with their boyfriend at the time, who was total, they wanted to kill him, okay? And they're using gestures. Well, you're going to want to mimic those gestures when you're talking about secrecy, right?
Diggler, when you say gesture to the right, are you, because I noticed you kept doing this, are you literally saying like they're gesturing right with their eyes, their head?
Yeah, so it's hemispherical.
So when you mirror that, are you gesturing to your right or their right?
Very, very good question. To your right, if you're facing them. If you're sitting next to them, you match them.
Right.
Matching and mirroring are different. Mirroring is when you're sitting across from them, okay? Their right means your left, okay? Matching means their right means your right, So you're, whatever. You adopt coordinate positives. Okay, what's a positive adjective?
Happy,
Gracious. What's so gracious of that guy that I talked to the other day to admit his faults or open up about his secrets? Okay. You will covertly educate them on your gestural grammar. Okay, so you're not just learning their gestural and expressional vocabulary, but you also need to teach them yours. So gesture to, and they will include these. Gesture to the operator. You're the operator. Okay, gesture to the subject. This is very simple. Gesture to the subject. All right, SP. You don't have to memorize all that. Okay, gesture to an item. Now, these are very important. The corridor gesture. Now, you've already established this means you, this means me. Okay, the corridor gesture is, people like you and me, guys like us, people, these people are so secretive. Okay, gesture away. That's a gesture away. People are secretive. They don't want to open up about their secrets. They act all above, they act all, they won't break any, they won't cross the street, if there's a stop, a red light, people like that who obey all the laws are sticklers. But people like us, who understand that we're not Pharisees, we're not, people like us understand, like you and me, we understand that sometimes the ends justify the means. Discard gesture, the now gesture. Okay, the now gesture, you point at the ground. You do it at least 59 seconds within having looked at your watch. Okay? You want to get them. Are you in on this voter fraud scheme or are you out? In so many words. Because we got to do something. We got to do something now. Now, I'm just, the foot stomp, you point at the ground. Okay? That's part of my cluster for now. Priming. What is this? Yes. That is a child's toy. Now imagine a toy. You don't have to imagine because there it is. All right? What you're doing is you're getting subjects to prime it. What does priming mean? Who are the vapists here? How do you prime a coil? Okay. Never mind.
Jewel only.
Okay, yes, very good. All right. Subjects that shift their moods, feelings, or beliefs, you're changing the shapes of the holes in their brains and modifying them to receive different types of information and suggestions, the commands you're going to give them, after bypassing their autopilot. Now, every time people are on autopilot. Say it's a cashier. Who here has worked a service job? Okay. What was your service job?
You looking at me?
Yes.
I was a waitress and a bartender for a little bit.
Okay. So when you're working, what, 12-hour shifts, 10-hour shifts? It's 8 hours into it. You have kind of a routine. Someone comes up to you, makes an order. You're on autopilot. You're not really. You're probably thinking about your what homework you have to do. You're thinking about you want to buy a new dress or shoes or that you saw in the store. But you are competently taking their order. Okay, anything because you've said it so many times. But when you engage a subject, you got to get them out of their autopilot mentality. You got to activate their RAS. What's an RAS?
Reticular activating.
Say it louder. Tell everyone.
Reticular activating system.
What is that?
It's like if you're hungry, your brain autofocuses on something that could be food, survival mechanisms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. So Poppy. See what just happened? You were looking over here, but then I said Poppy. I activated your reticular activation system. Okay? When you get someone out of their routine, you've got their focus. You need their focus. Access state principle. People in certain moods and mindsets will require those mindsets again to produce the same results. Give me an example, someone, of a target. We sent someone into the field to engage a target who had already given us content, but we just wanted more content.
Didn't you do that with Scott?
Huh?
Didn't you do that with Scott Bowl? Didn't you?
Sure, yeah. And there were certain pathways to getting content. So I went back, I left breadcrumbs in the form of videotape. I was able to see how I got him to open up about that. So you got to know the pathways to them opening up, and then that's their access state principle. Now establishing control. Now we get into techniques. Yes.
Sorry, quick question. So with autopilot, could you do it in the reverse where they will, like let's say they're reaching for their phone, they're doing something in autopilot, you can slip a question in there.
Yeah, or say, will you hold this for me? With the hand that they were getting their phone. Yeah, will you? Well, that's another example. Yeah.
So you can kind of
interrupt. Yeah, a pattern interrupt.
I think you're saying to put them in autopilot.
No,
so
get them out of autopilot.
while they're in it.
There might be times when you want to get them
Yeah,
into
I think that's
autopilot,
what
but
you're
not
talking
now.
about.
I got
Could
one.
you slip
Yes.
I went to an arcade with a target over the summer, and we were at this arcade playing games for hours, and I kept eliciting him as he was like very intensely playing Pac-Man.
Now,
To
yes.
try and get something out of him, but he wouldn't give me anything.
Well, there's a number of things that, in that case, you might have actually wanted to keep him in autopilot.
Yeah, that's what I was trying
Well, yeah,
the whole
okay, that's very
time.
shrewd,
Always playing.
because you have him in autopilot, that what he's doing simultaneous, opening up about secrets, it's going to feel natural to him. Why?
Because he's in a comfortable environment, or he's with, like, in an area where, because he's comfortable. He's in an environment where he feels comfortable. He's engaged.
He's playing what's the thing?
Pac-Man, basketball shooting.
Yeah, so when you play it's like driving. Like you know what, you're so used to pressing certain buttons, moving it a certain way. Someone's asking you questions. Well, what you're doing feels very natural to you, right? Because you've done it a million times. Someone's asking you questions. They're anchoring the questions they're asking you with something that feels very natural and intuitive to you. So that's very shrewd. Because you want to get their focus, interest, and curiosity. That's when you want to activate their RAS. You want to get them, Sundance,
Yes.
to, what does this book say? It says that there is no sound more sweeter in any language than the sound of one's own name. These are the 3 states you want. Okay? If you're unable to now trance, you want to basically get them into a trance. Decrease and you need to know when you've gotten them there, so you don't expend excess effort that you're going to need for other things. Slowed rate of speech, limited foot movement, eye fixation on operator. Okay.
What happens when you're the trance, Digler?
Well, then you have them wrapped around your finger.
So this, remember the other day I called it blinded? That's the me is short-term thinking versus long-term thinking. You take them out of long-term thinking, so no longer thinking of the consequence of things they say, but they're so into you that they're no longer, and that's what I call blinded. That's when you had them in the trance, and you know you do, but it takes a little bit to get to that state.
You're going to like the next slide. This slide, I'm not sure. I don't know if you'll like it. Establishing initial control of subjects. Okay, you're programming them too, also, to take a proactive interest in you. Take a step back, and there's going to be a void. They're going to, on autopilot, they're going to want to close the void, right? Move closer to you. You're programming them, training them to move into you. Look away from the interaction, see if they follow the cue. Yeah, some people are just racing. Are they doing the same thing? Then they're getting in sync with you. Hey, look. You guys read ahead. Damn it. Yeah, so, do all these things, see if they do the same thing. If they drink with it, if they take a sip of their drink or drag on their cigarette 7 seconds after you do, they'll jump off a bridge with you. Positive dissociation. Pick a topic or group of people your subject has negative views about. Oh, I already did this. The Trump administration, they're so secretive. The Obama administration is the most transparent administration in 50 years, or in ever, right? Whatever he said. Don't you want to be like Obama? You don't actually say that, but, Okay. No, this is the next slide you're going to like. Conversational regression. Why did I say you're going to like that? No, honestly, I forgot.
I said that you had them blinded.
Yes, okay. So you take them back to childhood. When you're a child, you take risks. You're less inhibited. Did you guys do stupid things when you're kids? Give me an example. Peter Pan.
You what?
What'd you do that for?
My backyard, not me.
I put a Tic Tac up my nose.
That was yesterday.
All right. So if you get them talking about their childhood, it's like, oh, I don't know, what's your tattoo say? Oh, this is a moon because my mom called me a moon child. Oh, really? What was that like? What was your mom like? You're getting them back to childhood. You're getting them to feel like a little girl, a little boy. They're more likely to be a little reckless in what they divulge to you.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
What if, does their childhood memories have to be positive for that to happen?
Do they have to have
Oh, that brings me to this. Has anyone thought about why I carry sunscreen and put it on, even indoors and even in rainy days?
your childhood when you went to
Does it smell like
Generally. Now there's some people, it's a rarity.
People like the
That have-
summer.
Yeah, it reminds them of positive memories. If they put on sunscreen, they were probably going, but you should know if they grew up in a desert, it didn't, maybe don't use this technique, okay? But if they went to the beach, they'll associate this with, I associate this with a cabin in Pinecrest. Embedded, I'm going to do a lightning round now. Embedded commands. Wait, 5 minutes? Where'd Jason go?
Yeah, I mean,
Till 4:30.
yeah. I don't
4:30 is with buffer, with 15-minute buffer.
Okay.
So,
All right. Noted.
as long as I'm out of here in 15 minutes. Okay. Embedded command. Well, are you guys having fun?
Yeah.
How can I? Tell me if you're not. Be honest. Be honest if you're
Keep going.
I don't want to mess you up, but I do want to say, so when I was with my target in Indiana, I asked him about his childhood, and it turned out his parents split, his dad took him to Hollywood, and he didn't like that. He had a negative experience when he was 7, 8 years old, went back with his mother, and to me, it played into the whole allegations against him.
Mhm.
So instead of being a positive experience, I learned something negative about it, and I tried to exploit it later on in our
Very good, very good. That's a good way that you used a stumbling block, or not a stumbling block, but what could have been a booby trap, all right, and used it to your advantage. Now, using this as a technique, conversational regression, you don't want to you kind of want to find out if they were happy kids first. all right? And you can do that through other means, all right? If early on in the conversation they say, oh, it reminds me of my dad, I don't talk to him anymore, he left when I'm 6. Well, don't use conversational regression later on, all right? Embedded commands, and there you have a vehicle, a command, a continuum. A person can feel completely focused when he or she finds something interesting. Now, I don't know, you're saying that about in some context. But if you put special emphasis on the command words, then you're commanding them without them knowing it to become curious, to become completely focused. You ever see a Kubrick movie? Okay, you notice how they talk, The Shining, when Scatman Crothers talking to Danny, all right? People use The Shining, and they shine. Any Kubrick movie talks, that characters talk like that. If you talk like that in a very kind of hypnotic way, you isolate, become curious. It's easy to become curious. That's your embedded command. All right?
I thing like cult leaders do that too.
Yes. Okay, I like this. This is fun. Okay. Say this, you're talking just apply any, what? What?
No, keep going.
What? I'm saying this is a conversation. It's okay. I'm not calling you out, but if it's related to this, share it. This is honestly not one of those things where I'm scolding you. I'm just curious.
He said something about a cult. I made just a follow up. Yeah, I'm a cult leader kind of joke. But that was it.
Get the hell out of here.
Sorry.
You do talk like that.
But yeah, this is a conversation, so feel free to chime in.
Hey, David, 1 second, please. I'm sorry, Antoinette. You just grabbed something off the table. Is there a little plastic folder there? Is there a plastic folder on the table? There's one.
Later.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's actually,
Some Netflix documentary.
that's actually, okay, see, this is why I'm glad that I'm finding out that you guys are sharing this, because you should watch old tapes of Jim Jones giving sermons. You should watch The Master, the PTA movie, and watch Phil Hoffman's performance. You should watch these movies, so that's actually a very valuable thing.
And read the article that's going on with the cult guy, the family that the husband, the 2 kids are missing, the mother and the new husband were just found in Kauai.
Oh, they were found in Kauai?
They just found him in Kauai. They brought him in for questioning. They did not.
What's the name of the documentary?
It's not documentary.
Okay.
It's a true story going on right now.
Okay.
Yeah, in the news.
Great.
Yeah.
There's a story you can follow. Jim Jones, if you listen to his sermons, the drinking the Kool-Aid, he killed almost 1,000 black people. He used the same exact rhetoric that Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. He uses the same talking points about the poverty gap, about the wage, the same. You could take a transcript from one of his sermons, put it in Bernie Sanders' voice. All right. I think you all should come with me to Guyana, drink Kool-Aid, and die. Like it's the same. He uses the same stuff. So anyway, so this is something. Knowing information. This is a sentence. Just apply it to any random context. Knowing information like that can really help you fully let go. Now with me, I think that's the only way to live. Do you see what I did? I started a sentence. Now with me. But really, this is the sentence. Fully let go now with me. Surrender now to me. All this stuff going on, finally having to just stop and let go. Now to me, the decision is always... Are you guys following? All right, so have you all surrendered to me?
Take us to your leader. You got any clue?
I already did this. Okay, talk technique, talk. Dialogue, interrupt, confusion, suggestion. Here's an example. My friend said his resident... It's easy to just relax. Okay, wait, now this is more interesting. Oh wait, I already did that. Now I have to be a little picky about what I indulge here. Interruption, now this is kind of like a verbal striptease. You're teasing the person. I remember when we visited a few years ago, it was beautiful. I remember seeing a car accident while we were downtown. This man ran up to the car that flipped over and anyway, I was with one of my professors at the time and I received some of the best advice I ever heard. He said, surrender to what is, let go of what was, have faith in what will be. That quote is from, I don't remember who said it. I hadn't seen my professor in years since college. He and I, well anyway, the man ran to the car, the bottom was on fire. He kicked the window out. Oh, yeah, it goes, there's only one chance to let go and do exactly what's required of me. He must have been an EMT or something. This guy in the car gets pulled out into safety as the inside of the car starts to burn, and my faith in humanity was restored fully by this. Oh, Sonia Riccati, that's who said it. I didn't think I'd remember. My old history professor and I had a good dinner, but what an experience for a first day in a new city. See what I did? Okay. So, like cliffhangers in a Netflix show, make them binge you. Overload cognitive processes. So sometimes, what's that?
It's a great picture. Whether that's allowed.
Oh, no, this is what you want to do. You want to pry their eyelids open, okay? It's not barbaric. You take a little teardropper and you keep their eyes lubricated. Weaponizing confusion. So how often would it fit? These don't make any sense. But inside, you confuse them. A lot of times people tune out, like you guys right now. But you could feel, so how often would it feel like nothing has really changed? What the hell does that mean? But you say it, and then you say because when you overload someone's cognitive process, they're like, confused. But then you offer an alternative, something very simple. Feel aroused, interested. Oh, I know what those words mean. They're gonna pivot to that. So when I say a bunch of stuff, if I give you a big lecture, okay, you guys, and I'm speaking complete technobabble, you guys don't understand, but then I say, so therefore, just let go, surrender, jump off a bridge. You guys are going to be like, oh, that makes sense to me. I'm going to go jump off a bridge. So you can depend on your eyes when your imagination is out of focus, but when you completely focus, just like this, everything fades away that doesn't matter. Such a good feeling to just lose yourself into what captures all of your focus when nothing can become what you aren't noticing. So my friend said, just relax. Now, when I try to think about too many things at once. So you're bookending, and you guys get it. The illusion of choice. Well, this is kind of one of the tactics. So while you're committing voter fraud, do you do it through ballot harvesting, or do you actually rig the machines? Okay, third-party authority. You know, the Dalai Lama once told me, so when you embed a command, you attribute it to someone else. Oh, I read this piece in the New Yorker about the power of opening up and being transparent. Confucius said to me the other day, you should just spill your secrets and not hold on to them because they're wearing you down. Shifting metaphoric pronouns. I went to the beach as a kid. So easy to just let yourself relax. See, you can start, people are always, they always say, don't talk to strangers. But sometimes when you do talk to a stranger, notice I started, what pronoun did I begin that with? People. And then what did I sneakily change it to? When you talk to a stranger, and it can be very refreshing and illuminating. Conversational disassociation, depersonalization. So planting things like, do you ever wake up and into a dream? You ever have false awakenings? See, when you ask people these things, you ever have false awakenings?
I have.
Yeah. you're getting them, and then you take a long pause because now they're thinking, you get them thinking, oh yeah, I do. I can't really trust myself. You ever drive home without even paying attention and you get home and you're like, how did I get here? Splitting their personalities. You just want to chop them up. Anyway, that's enough for now. I would have gone more into detail, but I must catch up. Oh, actually, I have 5 more minutes. Okay, splitting a personality. You actually don't want to do that. That's why I think in movies it's always a terrible mistake when it's like in the 3rd act and they do a fade out and then open to the next scene. It's like people are halfway to their parking lots. Don't do what I just did, and that's why I did it. Okay. When operators have authority, they have exponentially easier time controlling frame of reference for exchange of info with Yeah. Okay. So you want to plant the idea of, oh, what's on that arm? What's that tattoo on that arm of yours? You're dissociating them. You're saying that arm. Oh, how's the foot doing? You broke the foot the other day. You're subconsciously training them to disassociate their identities from their limbs, and you're setting the precedent of, you're gaslighting them basically. You're getting them to open up to the idea of telling you about how they're doing voter fraud because you're dissociating them from their identity, so therefore they don't have to feel guilty about doing the voter fraud because it's not them doing it, it's their hands. It's that hand. It's not your hand. It's not my hand. It's that hand that's shuffling the ballot, the whatever. So if you say this early in a different context in conversation, then later on in the conversation, it's amazing the effect that it will have. You've already planted the idea of Norman Bates in their head, so they're going to feel, well, I'm not what I do, Dissociative. I wonder how I can prevent myself from doing things. Sometimes I don't. I wait. Goes back to the last slide. Okay. Any questions? I actually want to use this last 3 minutes for questions.
Have you done the read course?
The what?
Read course.
Recourse.
Read. Read. R-E-E-D.
The read course.
Yeah.
What is it?
Well, that's what this is.
Oh, I don't know. Wait. What's the read course? The reason I ask is because Chase Hughes does offer courses, and I'm wondering if you're asking me because I know you read the book, and I'm wondering if you asked me if I took one of the.
This right here is given in conjunction with the read course.
The read course. Yeah. Is that on his website?
It's not done by Hughes.
He's saying that the Ellipsis Manual is a part of another
right. It's a much bigger
presentation
thing
that somebody else does called the read.
I was just curious if you done it.
I wasn't aware of that. I am a.
No, he hasn't.
No.
I have a question.
It's not that hard.
Well, I don't know. Well, I don't know. I don't know the read course.
The answer's no.
So,
Well, yeah, but I want to know about the read course. Yeah.
So when you were talking about this last part about that arm of yours and disassociating your POI from himself or herself is how I took it. I'd target and I'd call him coach.
Mm-hmm.
If I wanted to get to the bad stuff he did, hey coach, how we doing? Instead of calling him by the name, which was the sweetest thing in the world. When I wanted to be his buddy and I was earning his trust, I called him by his name is Cameron. I called him, hey Cam, how we doing? Cam, hey we Cam. Then it's like, hey coach, how we doing? When I was trying to talk to him about the things that he may have done. So this way he didn't associate it with Cam. Like I used that. I don't know if that's.
Well, actually, and you say this all the time. How we doing? Okay, that's another technique that I did not include in here, which is. You can call it the fraternity, what are we doing? What are we going to do? I use this with Jen and I. What are we doing? Maybe I didn't actually. Maybe I would have. I certainly used it with other targets. What are we going to do to stop Trump? Okay, so when you have a fraternity, you're in a fraternity, you have less accountability. Okay, it's what we're doing. We're going to commit voter fraud. Not me. I'm not doing it, but we are going to do it. So.
Do I give him a little separation by calling him coach when I'm talking about the his name and I did that bad thing. So instead I would call him by his nickname, so that he wasn't hearing his name associated with a negative experience I was trying to discuss with him.
Yeah, you don't want to associate. You don't want to anchor his name and his
So I would
identity
use, like,
to a
coach
negative
as
thing.
a way of not using his name when
Yeah.
I was trying to go hear the bad stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and one of the techniques is, so tell me what Sundance does on a weekend. Tell me what's a day in the life of Lefty. So you're already kind of speaking about them in the third person, referring to them in the third person. That's another technique.
That's actually a good elicitation or greenhouse or whatever that we should be using more. Tell me about a day in the life of XYZ for your subject.
Any other questions?
I guess a comment.
Yes.
If I'm going to volunteer on a campaign, and they say, "What do you like about the candidate that they work for?" And you say, "Oh, they're so open. Like it's so easy to throw." I just go, "Oh, they're so open. They really speak their mind."
Mm-hmm.
It's like just tiny stuff like that. I'm in no way. I'm a novice at this stuff, but like just
So am I.
the tiny little nuggets that's in here. I recommend reading it. It's really good.
And we talked about appropriating something from your subject before, and I just want to say that that's exactly what you did with Martin, and I talked about it before, but you took Martin's persona, his language, and you carried it over into other engagements in your life.
Another stage.
Now, see, that's one of the things here is some of you guys, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have used these techniques. I've used these techniques years before I read the book and realized, oh, it's a thing, all right? But it's good. It's not, if you know all this stuff anyway, that's actually still, as you have equal reason to know that it's a thing that you are using, because then you can be aware of yourself using it. Now, think about driving. When you go into the field, you want to be yourself, okay? You're not pretending. You're not doing an imitation, an impression of a leftist Democrat. You have to actually adopt their moral arithmetic and apply it to everything that you're talking about. You have to believe it. When you're selling them on voter fraud, you have to believe it. So it sounds like manipulation. It sounds like, oh, you're putting on using these magic tricks. But no, it's not like that. It's not like you're thinking when you're in the field, when you've learned all this stuff, you're not thinking, now I'm going to use the anchoring technique. No, it's just the more you are aware of it, the more you practice it, the more it's like driving a car. You don't think about it. It's just, you organize your own habits in such a way it's like playing an instrument. So don't be intimidated. It's a wonderful book. Read it. Feel free to call me if you want to talk about it and you want to, I don't know, maybe do some exercises or whatever. But not now because I have to go.